Imagine this: a boy only 9 years old, walking onto a stage lit so bright it looks more like daylight than night. A guitar nearly half his size hanging from a strap across his shoulder. He hasn't played a note. He hasn't even adjusted the microphone. And already, the sound of whistles cuts into him like shards of glass. The stage is vast, built for spectacle. Towers of LED screens loop with the show's logo, the kind you see in primetime competitions broadcast coast to coast. Cameras float on long black arms, prowling like cranes above an arena packed with thousands. Spotlights burn down with an intensity that makes every bead of sweat visible, every tremor in a hand impossible to hide. The boy's shoes squeak once on the glossy floor as he walks to the center. His hands shake so badly, the body of the guitar vibrates against his ribs. His eyes flicker toward the rows of judges' desks, tall chairs, faces arranged into practiced masks of curiosity and authority. He swallows, lips dry, then sets his fingers on the strings. The first whistle comes before sound. It's sharp, shrill, not playful, but punishing. A man's voice, cutting across the cavernous space, echoing as though amplified. The boy freezes. His shoulders stiffen. For a moment, the guitar is not an instrument but a weight dragging him under. He looks up, scanning the darkened sea beyond the lights, trying to locate the voice. All he finds is a blur of faces stacked row upon row, mouths twisted into smirks, some laughing, some just waiting to see how far he falls. The microphone on its stand catches the sound of his breath, short, uneven. Then a second whistle, followed by a laugh pitched too high, cruel in its timing. The audience seizes the moment. The tide rolls, chuckles turning into heckles, scattered voices calling out, "Go home." Too small for the stage. The noise isn't yet a storm, but it's enough to rattle the air. His fingers press the strings, trying to start. But the sound isn't music, not yet. Just a dull buzz as his hand shakes against the fretboard. Cameras zoom close on his face. Wide eyes, the edge of tears, jaw quivering as though holding back a sob. On the monitors above the stage, the image towers 10 feet tall, his fear broadcast to every corner of the hall. A boy against a coliseum. Naive courage meeting the practiced cruelty of adults who should know better. He glances into the darkness again, searching. It's not conscious, just a child's instinct to find one person who might smile, nod, signal that he isn't entirely alone. For a second, his gaze snags on a woman in the front rows, but her face is twisted in laughter, shoulders bouncing. He looks away quickly, ashamed that he hoped. The judges don't intervene. Their silence is heavier than words. They exchange glances, eyebrows raised, lips curled, waiting to see if the boy can endure or collapse. One leans back in his chair, folding arms as though to mark time, the way a bored teacher might during a presentation gone wrong. The crowd grows bolder. Someone shouts, "Take the guitar off him!" Laughter detonates again. The boy's knuckles whiten around the neck of the instrument. His bottom lip trembles. He bites it, hard, trying to steady himself. A single tear escapes, sliding down the curve of his cheek before he wipes it away quickly with the back of his hand, hoping no one saw. But the cameras saw, and the giant screens make sure the whole hall sees. A contrast hangs heavy. The tiny figure, barely tall enough for the microphone stand, standing under industrial beams of light, while the vast machine of the crowd, cameras, judges, strangers packed shoulder to shoulder, leans against him, pressing him toward collapse. The first note should have been his chance, the sound to announce that he belongs. Instead, the silence before it is drowned in whistles and laughter. The atmosphere becomes unbearable, thick, like air before a storm. He squeezes his eyes shut for a second, chest rising sharply, then opens them again, staring into the blur of lights that blind more than they reveal. What cuts deepest isn't the noise, but the absence of kindness. Not one voice rises in defense. Not one clap breaks the rhythm of mockery. The cruelty is collective, and in its unity, it becomes overwhelming. He adjusts the strap on his shoulder, as if maybe the weight of the guitar is the problem, not the crowd. His foot shifts nervously, a squeak loud in the microphone. The audience laughs again, their laughter louder than his courage. The judges stay silent still. Their pens hover over papers that will likely hold nothing more than an X. They know television feeds on humiliation. And tonight, humiliation has taken the stage before music ever had the chance. The boy looks down at the strings, blinks hard to clear his vision, then looks up once more. One last attempt to find a friendly face in the sea of shadows. But all that greets him is more laughter, more smirks, more mouths calling for him to stop before he begins. And so he stands there, guitar trembling against his chest, eyes shimmering as the roar of mockery thickens. What none of them know yet is that something is about to shift. Just wondering, where are you watching from? Write it down. Bellow. The first judge leaned forward, elbows on the desk, pen tapping against wood with an audible impatience. His voice, amplified across the hall, was laced with mock sweetness sharpened to cut. Maybe give it a few more years of practice before humiliating yourself up here. The timing of the line was surgical. The crowd burst into laughter, not a warm ripple, but a jagged explosion. People slapped knees, leaned into neighbors, some doubling over as if the humiliation of a 9-year-old was comedy gold. The boy froze. His shoulders twitched as though struck, his grip on the guitar neck tightening until his knuckles paled. He tried to strum, to prove them wrong. The pick scraped the strings, but the sound was warped, thin and sour, a sickly buzz that betrayed nerves. He winced at the noise even before the audience did. A whistle came from the midsection, shrill and mocking. Then a man shouted, "Take him off the stage!" The laughter doubled, emboldened by cruelty. On the big screens, his face appeared in painful detail. Wide, wet eyes, lashes already sticking, jaw trembling as he fought to keep composure. The camera cut to his fingers, small hands, damp with sweat, sliding clumsily against the steel. The strings bit at skin not calloused enough to withstand pressure. The image loomed over him, projected 10 feet high. His struggle enlarged and fed back into the very people who caused it. He swallowed, and the mic caught the click in his throat. His sneakers squeaked on the glossy floor as he adjusted stance, the sound amplified embarrassingly. A boy in the balcony mimicked the squeak, the crowd laughing harder. He tried again. This time he landed an E minor, the chord he trusted most. But nerves betrayed him. One note rang clear, the other's dead, buzzing against frets. The clean sound was swallowed instantly by heckles. "Go home, kid! This isn't daycare!" The judges didn't save him. One leaned back with arms folded, another rolled eyes toward the ceiling. The third scribbled something meaningless on a card. Their silence was louder than any insult. The boy, instinctively, searched their faces for kindness, for an adult to stop the cruelty, but found only indifference. He glanced to the crowd instead. His eyes snagged on a woman in the second row. For a second she smiled reflexively, and hope flickered. But then she turned, laughing with her friends, leaving him swaying under the betrayal. He lowered his gaze so quickly, It looked like shame itself had shoved his chin down. The guitar knocked against his ribs, heavy as stone. He dragged the pick again. One string rang true, then snapped sharp with static as his hand jerked. The sound drew ironic clapping from a pocket of seats, slow, cruel applause mocking every failed note. The boy's shoulders curled inward as though he could shrink into himself and vanish. Tears blurred his sight. He bit his lip to steady it, tasting salt. One tear escaped, carving a line down his cheek. He brushed it with the back of his hand, hoping the cameras hadn't caught it. But they had. And on the giant screen above, the tear became theater for thousands. "Don't worry, champ," the first judge said, leaning into the microphone, feigning concern. "No shame in leaving now and coming back when you're ready." His finger hovered over the buzzer, that infamous red button promising a blast of sound that would end the humiliation with finality. The crowd leaned forward, eager for the ritual. But the boy shook his head, almost invisible, just a flicker of defiance. His hand trembled, but he dragged the pick anyway. This time, 2 strings rang clean. It was fragile, but music lived in it. The crowd faltered, uncertain whether to mock or to listen. For a heartbeat, the noise thinned. Then the second judge sighed into his mic. "We don't have all night," he said flatly. "Do we think we have a show to run?" The audience seized on it, laughter exploding again. A chant sprouted from the balcony. "Bye-bye, bye-bye," jagged and mean. The boy hunched deeper, but his chin rose a fraction. He planted his sneaker hard enough to squeak again, then strummed with desperate resolve. It wasn't steady, but it was stubborn. The pen tapped again on the judge's desk, a sharp, impatient rhythm. The buzzer glowed faintly under his finger. The cameras zoomed on the boy's hand, trembling fingers pressing steel, the small scar on his knuckle gleaming white under lights. The crowd roared, waiting for the final humiliation. But something shifted. It began in the upper rows, too small to name, a hush where noise should be. People turned heads. The chant faltered, laughter thinning into uneasy murmurs. The atmosphere tilted, weight moving to a single point. A sound scraped, the legs of a chair dragging against concrete. Not loud, but in the silence, it cut through. Someone stood. The judge didn't notice yet. His finger still hovered, ready to drop. The boy's pick hung in the air, suspended before another chord. But the crowd noticed. Their voices dropped, their eyes shifting toward the back of the hall. The energy changed. Even the boy, blinking through tears into the blinding lights, felt it. The stage air thicker, as if the room itself had drawn breath and was holding it. The hush begins like a ripple, thin and uncertain, as though the hall itself is questioning its own behavior. A few heads turn, confused, irritated at being distracted from the spectacle of humiliation. But the ripple grows. The crowd's laughter drops in pitch, breaking apart into fragments, replaced by a strange anticipation none of them can name. The judge doesn't notice. His finger hovers above the red buzzer, his smile staged for television. The cameras split their attention. One fixed on the boy's trembling hands, another on the judge's, and a third, drifting restlessly, searching the tears of the audience for reaction shots. It finds something else instead. High in the back row, a man stands. No spotlight tracks him. No announcement marks the moment. He is simply there, rising from his seat, with the unhurried certainty of someone who does not need introduction. The movement alone is enough to tilt the air. Conversations falter. Someone gasps. The boy, blinking through tears and glare, feels the change before he can see its cause. At first, the man is only a silhouette, squared shoulders, arms relaxed, weight balanced. Then the camera catches his face, and the LED wall magnifies it above the stage. The jawline is unmistakable. The eyes steady, unblinking. The beard trimmed close. Chuck Norris. The reaction is instant. The front rows stir first, whispers snapping into exclamations. "That's him!" Phones shoot into the air. Then the midsection catches, voices rising in disbelief. Finally, the farthest seats tilt forward, people standing as if pulled. The sound is not laughter now, but a low roar of recognition, threaded with awe. "Chuck Norris!" someone yells, and the name ricochets through the hall. The boy's head jerks upward. For a moment he forgets the guitar pressed to his ribs, forgets the sweat slicking his palms. He stares through the wash of light, eyes locking onto the figure in the distance. His breath steadies. His grip firms. The crowd's cruelty loosens its hold. The judges, caught off guard, shift uneasily. The first judge, still poised over the buzzer, lowers his hand a fraction. His quip dies on his lips. The second judge mutters something under his breath, eyes narrowing as if recalculating the script. The third forces a smile, recognizing the producers will want to milk this twist for everything it's worth. Norris doesn't smile. He doesn't wave. He simply steps into the aisle, descending slowly. People rise to let him pass without being asked. Drinks tilt, coats snag, knees bump against seat backs, but no one complains. The crowd parts around him instinctively, a corridor opening as though the building itself acknowledges his presence. Security notices late. 2 guards appear at the edge of the aisle, radios pressed to their mouths, but when they register who he is, their feet hesitate. One lowers his hand from his earpiece, the other folds his arms in front of him, not blocking the way, but making clear he won't interfere. The decision has already been made by the room. The boy follows every step. His eyes widen, then narrow, as if drawing strength just from watching. For the first time all night, he stands taller. His pick steadies between his fingers. He doesn't smile, not yet, but he looks less like prey. A hush spreads, deep and heavy. The earlier chants dissolve. A woman in the balcony whispers, "Please," though she isn't sure what she's asking for. A man lowers his phone, ashamed of recording. Even the hecklers who had shouted loudest sit back in their chairs, restless, their bravado evaporating under the weight of silence. Norris stops at the end of the aisle. The cameras catch his profile on the big screen. Calm, resolute, eyes fixed on the boy. He hasn't said a word, but the entire atmosphere has flipped. What was once an execution is now an interrogation. Not of the boy, but of the crowd. The first judge clears his throat, forcing bravado. "Sir," he says, voice carrying awkwardly, "please take your seat. We're in the middle of—" But Norris doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. His stillness is louder than words. The audience leans into the silence. A mother presses her arm tighter around her daughter, suddenly ashamed of having laughed earlier. A teenager lowers his eyes, pocketing his phone. The change is contagious. One person after another realizing they no longer want to be part of the mob. Norris descends further, hand brushing seat backs as he passes, each step deliberate. The boy's eyes never leave him. His breathing slows. His shoulders unlock. He grips the guitar not as a shield now, but as if it might still be what he came to use it for. At the judge's desk, the pen tapping has stopped. The red buzzer glows, waiting. The judge hovers, then lowers his hand, unsure. Authority has slipped from the panel, shifted to the man walking down the aisle. When Norris reaches the floor, The guards step aside. He pauses, gaze steady, then moves toward the stage. The boy feels the shift like oxygen rushing back into a suffocating room. The hall is silent now, except for the sound of Norris's footfalls on the hard floor. Each step echoes, absorbed by the waiting air. The boy raises the pick again, not to strum, not yet, but to be ready. And as Norris places his hand on the small staircase that leads to the stage, the crowd holds its collective breath, bracing for what they already know will change everything. He doesn't hurry the final steps. Rubber soles thud against painted wood, each sound carrying in the hush that has swallowed the arena. The crowd is silent, not out of politeness, but because silence itself feels electric, like air before lightning. Security hovers, but does not move. A floor manager whispers frantically into a headset, knowing he has no control. Norris steps onto the stage. He doesn't bow or wave. He looks at the boy with trembling hands, at the judges framed by their glowing desk, at the buzzer that has become a weapon. Then he reaches for the microphone. The tech instinctively lowers the backing track, dimming the lights so the stage is stripped of artifice. One judge, desperate to break the spell, blurts, "What's he doing here?" This isn't his show. He forces a grin, waiting for laughter that never comes. The sound falls flat, absorbed by the weight of silence. Norris tugs the mic cord once, checks it, and speaks. His voice is calm, not loud, but it carries to every seat. I can't sit and watch grown adults humiliate a child who has the courage to stand here. The words land hard. Some in the audience clap instinctively, then stop, unsure whether applause is right. Others glance at each other, cheeks warming with shame. The silence thickens, heavy and uneasy. The boy turns toward Norris, eyes wide. For the first time, there's something in his face besides fear. His shoulders straighten a little, as if he's borrowing strength. The judges squirm. One clears his throat. "Mr. Norris, with respect." His voice breaks, and he abandons the sentence. Another tries levity. "It's a talent show, not a sermon." His chuckle dies in the quiet. The third leans back, arms folded, chin lifted in a gesture that looks like control, but reeks of nerves. Norris lowers the mic, speaking only to the boy. "You came here to play, and you're still standing. That matters." The boy nods, just once. His pick quivers between damp fingers. "Don't encourage this," the first judge snaps, voice sharp with unease. He turns to the audience. "Folks, we all love passion, but we have standards." Norris answers by lifting the mic again, gaze steady. Standards measure skill. They don't license cruelty. The crowd stirs, a low rumble of agreement mixed with guilt. A teenager lowers his phone, ashamed. A woman folds her arms, frowning at herself. Someone in the balcony shouts, "Let him finish." The sound hangs, bold and raw. Norris tilts his head toward the boy. "Play the first few bars," he says. The boy strums. One note clean, another wavers, a third dies under pressure. A ripple of laughter rises and collapses when Norris raises a hand. Again. "Breathe first." The boy inhales, steadier this time. He strums. Two notes ring clear, the third imperfect but proud. A few claps break out, scattered, real. The judge who had mocked taps his pen, then snaps, "We can't hand out passes because we feel bad." That's not the show. He reaches toward the buzzer, the red circle glowing like fire. Before his hand lands, Norris steps forward. Not dramatic, just enough to place himself between the boy and that button. He doesn't touch the desk. He doesn't raise his voice. He stands there, and the buzzer suddenly looks small. The audience inhales, watching the shift of power. "Hold your standards. Norris says evenly. But don't pretend humiliation is part of the score. In the middle rows, a man stands and claps, hard and deliberate. A woman joins him. Across the hall, others rise, applause spreading unevenly but growing. The panel's faces flicker with unease. The boy's eyes shine, wet but stronger. He stares at Norris's hands, empty, steady, and then back at the strings. He isn't sure what comes next, but he knows he is no longer alone. The second judge tries to sneer, but his voice cracks. "What's next, Mr. Norris? A duet." He intends mockery, but it sounds like permission. Norris turns to the boy. "I'll play with you," he says, plain as an invitation to breathe. "Let's show them." The boy gasps softly, eyes searching for confirmation. Norris nods once, firm. The child nods back. A stagehand, wide-eyed, rushes from the wings with a spare guitar, meant for emergencies no one expected to look like this. He places it in Norris's hands, as though handing over something sacred. Norris plucks a string, adjusts a peg, and lets the note ring. Clean, low, steady. The room holds its breath. The boy lifts his pick. Norris readies his fingers, and as the first judge, face tight, moves his hand toward the buzzer again, the audience sees it, and the silence shatters into gasps. The judge with the pen finally breaks, his voice sharp enough to carry. "Chuck, you're a legend. No one doubts that. But this is a talent competition, not a morality lesson. The boy can't play." The line echoes like a gavel strike. Some in the audience clap automatically, grateful for a rule they can cling to. Others stay frozen, uneasy. The laughter that follows is thin, brittle, as if people aren't sure whether to laugh at the boy anymore or at themselves. The cameras catch the division. Faces smirking, others looking away, several caught in the act of realizing what they've become. Norris doesn't flinch. He keeps his eyes on the boy, speaking into the microphone in a steady rhythm. Talent isn't just skill. It's courage. And this child has more courage than most of us in this hall tonight. The words ripple outward. In the middle rows, a man stands, clapping with both hands. A woman joins him 2 seats away. Their applause spreads in scattered bursts, not yet a wave, but enough to be felt. The rest of the crowd hesitates, stuck between shame and habit. The pen tapper leans forward, doubling down. "We can't reward pity. Standards exist for a reason. If we lower them, we punish real talent." His eyes dart to the camera, looking for an ally in the millions watching at home. Norris answers without raising his tone. "Standards matter. Cruelty doesn't. Don't confuse one with the other." The boy looks up at him, a flicker of hope cutting through fear. His pick shakes less now. Norris places a hand on the boy's shoulder, steady but gentle, a gesture that says, "You're not alone." Another judge, searching for middle ground, adds weakly, "He's sweet, but fairness matters too." The third judge stays quiet, his gaze flicking nervously toward the producer's booth. The tension at the desk is visible. 3 adults scrambling to look authoritative while the room leans away from them. Norris speaks again, soft but firm. Fairness isn't mocking a child in front of thousands. Fairness is giving him space to try that lands. A teenager in the balcony puts his phone in his pocket and claps. A father in the front row shifts his daughter on his lap, embarrassed to remember she'd laughed earlier. Small eruptions of applause build again, uneven but growing stronger. The stagehand appears from the wings, almost tripping over a cable, carrying a spare guitar. He holds it out with both hands, as if delivering something sacred. Norris accepts it with a nod, plucks a string, twists the peg until the note settles clean and low. The sound cuts through the silence like a line drawn in ink. The pen tapper forces a smile at the camera. Viewers, we all love a story, but a duet won't hide weakness. We judge the boy, not you. Norris looks only at the child. Then judge him. But listen first. He lowers his voice, this time for the boy alone. What's your opening chord? The boy whispers it. Norris nods. Good. That's where we start. The boy wipes his palm on his jeans, leaving a dark streak. He raises the pick, hand trembling but less than before. Norris moves his hand from the boy's shoulder to his wrist, adjusting it a fraction. Breathe. Steady. You've already won by standing here. The crowd leans forward as one. An usher forgets her job. A soda cup rolls under a seat, bumping rhythmically like a quiet metronome. The second judge glances down, lips pressed, unsure. The third looks ashamed. The first judge, the pen tapper, rests his finger just above the red buzzer, the glow catching the veins in his hand. Norris counts softly, visible only to the boy. 1, 2. The child inhales, chest rising. His eyes lock on Norris, who nods, calm and certain. The pick begins to fall toward the strings. Scattered voices in the hall whisper, "Please." Others clap once, then stop, afraid to break the moment. And then, just as the first note is about to ring, the pen tapper shifts his weight forward, his finger pressing down toward the buzzer, determined to crush the sound before it begins. The boy sees it. The audience sees it. Norris doesn't look away. The judge's finger slams down. The red buzzer glows, but nothing happens. The techs have already killed the feed. No horn, no humiliating blast, just a small plastic click, amplified by silence. The cameras catch it. Thousands of eyes see the emptiness of the gesture. The audience laughs once, not cruelly, but as though realizing a magician's trick was only smoke. Norris doesn't even glance at the desk. His focus is only on the boy. On 2, he murmurs and nods. 1, 2. The first chord stumbles. Norris slides in beneath it with a steady, low rhythm, anchoring the sound. The boy's hand steadies. The next chord lands cleaner. The next cleaner still. Strings stop buzzing with fear and start ringing with tone. The audience leans forward. People stop filming and start listening. The lights dim almost imperceptibly, softer, warmer, as if the building itself understands. Even the judges are forced into stillness, watching something they no longer control. The boy dares a glance at Norris. Norris is watching him only, nodding with each beat. Their strums align. For the first time all night, the boy looks less like prey and more like a player. 2 measures become 4. 4 become 8. The boy exhales and, for the first time, remembers why he came here. Not to survive, but to play. His wrist loosens, his fingers glide. The sound blooms into something alive. In the audience, eyes shine. A teenager in the balcony claps once, embarrassed, then keeps clapping. A woman wipes her cheek with the back of her hand. A father bends his head to whisper to his daughter, "Watch." Remember this. Norris begins to step back. The boy instinctively steps forward. The roles shift without words, the legend supporting, the child leading. At the tricky chord change, the one that always betrayed him in practice, Norris tips his chin a fraction. The boy nails it. Scattered cheers burst, then hush, as if afraid to break the spell. Then Norris stops playing altogether. He doesn't announce it. He just lets go, like a parent releasing the seat of a bicycle. The boy continues. For a heartbeat, the melody wavers, then steadies. His solo emerges, rough-edged, imperfect, but alive. He bends a note too far and, instead of breaking, it soars. The hall holds still, listening to a sound that was never supposed to exist here. The solo ends. Silence hangs for a beat. Then the ovation detonates. It starts in fragments, claps, whistles, shouts, and fuses into a thunder that rattles the rigging. People leap to their feet. The same mouths that yelled, "Get him off," now scream, "Yes." A chant builds, the boy's name, again and again, until it becomes another kind of music. Norris smiles for the first time. He joins back in for the closing chorus, not to lead, but to weave around the boy's line. When the final chord comes, Norris mutes early so the child's sound can hang alone. The boy holds it. The note floats, ripples, and fades. The ovation doesn't fade. It grows, rolling in waves. Camera operators clap one-handed, trying to keep lenses steady. In the balcony, people cry openly. On the floor, strangers hug. The LED screen shows the boy's face. Stunned, proud, no longer afraid. The judges are undone. The pen tapper stares at his useless buzzer. The second judge wipes at her eye and pretends it's dust. The third opens his mouth and shuts it again. Authority has slipped away, leaving them exposed. Norris steps forward and lifts the mic. He waits until the roar thins to a hum. His words are calm, measured, but carried by 20,000 listening hearts. It's not strength that makes someone a legend. It's courage. The courage to walk on stage when the world is against you. The hall erupts again, louder than before. People stamp feet, clap until palms burn, cry, laugh, shout his words back. The boy stands in the middle, breathing hard, clutching his guitar. Norris places a hand on his shoulder once more. Lighter now, as if confirming the ground is his. Behind the desk, the pen tapper tries to salvage something. We were always going to give him time. The audience answers with a wave of noise that silences him. The second judge leans into her mic. You earned this, simple and true. The third lowers his head. A producer backstage is already shouting about edits, clearances, ratings. Nobody in the room cares. The story has been chosen. Norris hands back the spare guitar and steps aside. The boy strums one final quiet chord for himself, small as a promise. The ovation keeps burning, rolling, folding back on itself, not tapering but settling into something endless. And in that thunder, one truth lingers, impossible to ignore. The crowd will remember not the cruelty of its jeers, but the courage that silenced them.